Today, I wanted to talk about something that is probably going to be a bit controversial, honestly, and I'm a little bit excited to see what you all think. So this is going to be my list of top 5 things that are a total waste of money. So let's just get at it. So we get people coming all the time asking about what mods they should get, if they should get this or that or whatever. And a lot of the time my answer is honestly just don't bother. Overlanding is so expensive as it is, and there's just a bunch of products that have been pushed or hyped or like sold as being something, you know, worth investing in. And in my opinion at least, it's totally just a waste of money. Some of them you might even have on your truck already, and that's fine, but these are the top 5 things that I think aren't worth the money. So the first mod that I think is a bit of a waste of money, I know some of you already have them, but that's lower control arm skids. For those of you that don't know, a lower control arm skid is a chunk of aluminum or steel that bolts to the bottom of your lower control arm, and that's meant to, I guess, protect the lower control arm, but I don't know why. The lower control arm is already a pretty substantial chunk of steel, and it can handle quite a lot of abuse. So all you're really doing when you bolt these lower control arm skids on is losing clearance, so you're gonna hit them more often. And honestly, we've had to work on a bunch of trucks that already had them installed, and when we removed them, all this water and mud just comes pouring out of the drain holes on the lower control arms because they've been plugged by the bolts for these lower control arm skids. So you're gonna have more rust issues, you're gonna have more junk inside your lower control arm, you're not really protecting anything, and you're just spending money for honestly what I think is no reason. When I ran stock lower control arms on my truck, I smashed them on rocks and didn't care at all and never had a problem, like ever. I'm sorry, but I just think they're a waste of money. So on to the next one. So my second mod that I think is a serious waste of money is a dual battery cage in the stock location, or really any larger battery cage that goes in the stock location. I had one of these on my own truck a long time ago. Basically, these cages, they bolt into the stock location, and I don't really have a problem with dual batteries. I don't even have a problem with the battery cage. My problem is with how these cages mount to the stock fender. If you've ever looked at your stock fender, you'll know that it's made out of super thin sheet metal. And the way that these cages bolt to that, they just use a combination of small little bolts through the stock holes or self-tapper screws. And I guarantee that they will rip out. 100%, no chance that they're not gonna rip out. Basically, like, you throw in one of these cages, you put a bigger battery or dual batteries, and you just doubled the weight in that spot. So already you're like putting more weight on that area, and then you just screw it in with some self-tappers and a couple little bolts. It was never gonna work, realistically. You drive down some bumpy back roads and it's just gonna rip out. I had it happen on my own truck. The dual batteries in that spot ripped out, and they went forward into my headlight, smashed the headlight out. I was on like a 7,000 kilometer road trip. I had to ratchet strap the batteries in. It was just a whole thing. I've also seen dual batteries bounce around and put holes in people's engines. It's just really bad. If you're gonna get dual batteries, it's way better to spread the weight out, put a battery in the stock spot, put a battery on the passenger side, put your batteries in the bed, put them in the cab, put them anywhere but in that one spot. Or if you're gonna get a battery cage and put it in the stock spot, at least get a steel one and weld it in and reinforce it properly, because I've fixed way too many of these. Please trust me. So mod number 3 that I'm not a big fan of is the drop bracket lift. Basically what a drop bracket lift is you're taking this big drop bracket and you are bolting it to all the stock locations, which drop all your lower control arm pivot points down by like 3 or 4 inches or whatever the kit is. And what you end up having to do is add extensions to your shock, you have to add extensions to your spindles, and you get weird CV angles and all this stuff. Basically, these kits are designed more for guys that want to fit big tires without modifying the body at all, and are mostly spending their time on the street. Whereas if you're actually going off-road, all they're really doing is raising your center of gravity without actually giving you any more clearance under the truck. You're getting more clearance from bigger tires, but the trade-off is just not really worth it. Your suspension will be a lot weaker with all the extensions and spacers and whatever, and now you're bolting bigger tires to it. It's just a recipe for disaster if you're wheeling. If you're on the street and that's your thing, you just want it to look cool, that's totally fine. But when you have to cut out a cross member and everything else, and eventually you want to change your suspension setup or upgrade or even return to stock and sell it, you can't, because you've just cut out this cross member and you're locked into drop brackets now. So I just don't think it's worth the money. I don't think it's even a performance upgrade. It's literally just to fit bigger tires, and to me that's not a worthwhile reason to put one in. So in a similar vein as the drop bracket lifts is my 4th mod, and that is spacer lifts. Basically a spacer, you're probably well aware, is just a big chunk of metal that goes on top of your shocks, pushes them down, pushes everything down, and gives you lift. What happens when you do that is you're lowering the shock, so now your travel is down here instead of up here, and your upper control arms end up hitting the coil, you get weird CV bind, they're just not actually designed for really wheeling. They're putting extra stress on the shock, so it's more likely you bend the shock. You know, it's the same as the drop bracket lift. If you're just driving around town and you just want to lift your truck for really cheap, then they're totally fine and acceptable. But as soon as you actually go off-road, you'll realize very quickly that the performance is really bad, and you're just gonna break stuff and wear stuff out way faster. So avoid spacer lifts if you can. That's all I got to say about that. All right, so my number 5 mod that I think is a waste of money is another bit of a controversial one, and that is a cold air intake. A cold air intake is basically designed to relocate your engine air intake to a different spot to bring in colder air. Colder air is more dense, so it's got more oxygen in it. More oxygen means better combustion, more power, all good things. This is how turbos and superchargers work. They just push in more and more air so that you get more power. However, on modern vehicles, the stock air intake is already a cold air intake. It's usually in the wheel well somewhere, and the cold air intake is actually moving that intake back into the engine bay. On older vehicles, the air intake for the engine was usually right on top of the engine. So you're pulling in super hot air from the engine bay and putting that into the motor. So a cold air intake kit would move the intake to a colder area and you would get more power, and that makes sense. There's all sorts of arguments about whether the filters are more efficient or like cleanable or whatever. In my opinion, the stock filter works great. If it was so easy to get an extra 5 horsepower, the manufacturer probably would have done it, and I've never seen any good evidence on a modern vehicle that it actually gives you more power. Like, I can see getting one if you needed to move your intake out of the wheel well. Say you're putting big tires on, you're losing some of the coverage, you don't want to suck water in. You move that inside, and now you're a bit more protected than you were before. But as far as actually getting more power, I don't think it's a thing these days. So yeah. So that's it. That's all the mods I have that I think are, I mean, here's the thing. I think there's a lot of things that are a waste of money, but to each their own. If you're buying something just for the looks, then that's up to you. You know, if the looks are worth the money to you, then I guess it's worth it. But I've tried to put together a bit of a list of things that are kind of touted as being practical and a good upgrade for your truck, and in my opinion just don't really live up to the expectations, and they definitely don't live up to the price. If you haven't done any of those things yet, I would probably invest your money somewhere else. New tires, suspension, gas. Like, gas is insane these days. Just get out on a trip is more worthwhile than any of these products. So If you want to see more of our videos, please subscribe. We got lots more stuff coming. We got more frequently asked Fridays. We got more trip videos. I got a 2022 Tundra, and I'm gonna start modifying it pretty quick here. Probably some of the next videos coming out. So definitely subscribe if you're into any of that stuff, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. You are great. Bye.